The giant ship floated silently in the darkness of space. Its metal hull was scarred from thousands of years of dust and small rocks hitting it as it traveled between stars. Inside, 1,000,000 humans slept in frozen sleep, unaware that 5,000 years had passed since they left their dying planet. The ship's computer, Area, kept watch over the sleeping humans. Its job was to keep them safe and find them a new home. For thousands of years it had searched the stars, but found no perfect world for its sleeping passengers. Dr. Alice Wright adjusted her breathing mask as she stepped through the airlock. The air inside the human ship was stale but breathable. Her heart beat faster with excitement. In her 10 years as a xenobiologist for the Galactic Concordat, she had never found anything like this. A ship full of a species no one in the galaxy had ever met. "Amazing," she whispered, her voice echoing in the empty corridor. They survived all this time. Behind her, Security Officer John Miller stepped through the airlock, his hand resting on his weapon. His gray skin looked pale in the emergency lights that had activated when they opened the door. "Stay alert," he said, his 4 eyes scanning the corridor. "We don't know what we're dealing with." Ambassador William Garcia followed them, his long, thin body moving gracefully despite the low gravity. As the diplomatic expert, he was there to make first contact if any of the ship's crew were awake. "The scanner shows no active life signs," he said, checking the device on his wrist. "But there are over 1,000,000 stasis pods active throughout the ship." Alice moved forward, her scanner guiding her toward the center of the massive vessel. The ship was huge, nearly 5 miles long and 1 mile wide. The corridors were designed for beings about their size, which was a good sign. Many species in the Concordat were much larger or smaller. "Their technology is primitive," John said, running a hand over a control panel. "But it worked. They kept themselves alive out here for thousands of years." "Not primitive," Alice corrected him. "Just different. Look at these stasis chambers." They had entered a vast room filled with rows of transparent pods. Inside each pod was a human, perfectly preserved. Alice approached the nearest pod and wiped away the thin layer of frost on its surface. Inside was a female human with pale skin and red hair. "They look so peaceful," William said. "Do you think they meant to sleep this long?" "Unlikely," Alice replied, checking her scanner. "According to these readings, this ship has been traveling for over 5,000 years. No species would plan to sleep that long." They continued through the ship, passing room after room filled with sleeping humans. Finally, they reached a large circular chamber at the center of the vessel. Unlike the rest of the ship, this room was brightly lit. "This must be the control center," Alice said, approaching a glowing console in the center of the room. As she touched the console, the lights in the room brightened, and a soft voice spoke from all around them. "Unknown biological entities detected. Please identify yourselves." The 3 aliens froze. John raised his weapon, his training taking over. "I am Dr. Alice Wright of the Galactic Concordat," Alice said slowly. "We are peaceful explorers. Are you this vessel's control system?" "I am Area Advanced Recursive Intelligence Algorithm. I maintain the slumbering Earth and its passengers. You are the first non-human entities I have encountered in 5,214 years of operation." Alice exchanged excited glances with William. This was a functioning artificial intelligence from an unknown species. The discovery was unprecedented. "Area," William said, stepping forward. "We represent the Galactic Concordat, an alliance of 37 spacefaring species. We found your ship drifting near our border territories. We wish to establish peaceful contact with your species." There was a pause, as if the AI was considering its response. "The humans of Earth are in emergency cryostasis," Area explained. "They fled our home planet when its ecosystems began to collapse. I was programmed to find them a suitable world and wake them once it was safe." "And did you find such a world?" Alice asked. "I found 17 potential worlds over the millennia," Area replied. "But none met all safety parameters. And in the last 1,000 years, many of those worlds were colonized by other species." John lowered his weapon slightly. "So what was your plan?" to continue searching until a suitable world was found, or until external assistance was rendered. The AI's voice seemed to grow warmer. It appears the latter has occurred. Alice approached another console, her scientific curiosity taking over. Arya, can you tell us about the humans? What kind of species are they? Humans evolved on Earth as omnivorous primates. They developed advanced technology rapidly compared to their biological development. They are adaptable, resilient, and highly social. They are also... The AI paused. Also what? William prompted. Potentially dangerous when threatened, Arya finished. Their history includes significant conflict. John tightened his grip on his weapon again, but Alice waved him down. Most species have violent histories, she said. What matters is what they became. Arya, is it possible to wake some of the humans? To establish contact? Another pause, longer this time. Such action would be permitted under my protocols, Arya said finally. But I must prioritize the safety of all humans under my care. We understand, William said. We mean no harm to your passengers. It would be helpful to speak with some of them directly. I will awaken the command crew, Arya decided. They are best equipped to handle first contact scenarios. A door at the far end of the room slid open, revealing a smaller chamber, with 5 stasis pods arranged in a circle. Unlike the others they had seen, these pods were connected to many more monitors and systems. I will revive Chief Military Officer Frank Collins first, Arya announced. Please stand back. The revival process takes approximately 10 minutes. The aliens watched as the central pod began to glow with soft blue light. Inside, a human male with short brown hair and weathered skin lay motionless. Then the pod hissed open, releasing a cloud of cold vapor. For several minutes, nothing happened. Then suddenly the man's chest rose with a deep breath. His eyes snapped open, dark blue and instantly alert. Those eyes immediately fixed on the 3 aliens standing across the room, narrowing with suspicion and something else that made John instinctively raise his weapon again. It was the look of a predator assessing a threat. Arya, the man said, his voice rough from thousands of years of disuse. Report. Welcome back, Chief Collins, the AI responded. It has been 5,214 years since stasis was initiated. We have made contact with representatives of an interstellar coalition of species. Earth is gone. You are the last humans in known space. Frank Collins sat up slowly, never taking his eyes off the aliens. His face showed no shock, only a cold calculation that sent a shiver down Alice's spine. The beast was awake. Frank Collins swung his legs over the edge of the pod, his muscles working better than they should have after 5,000 years of sleep. He wore a simple gray uniform with no markings except a small patch on the shoulder, showing Earth as seen from space. So, he said, his voice growing stronger with each word, we're the last ones. It wasn't a question. Alice stepped forward, keeping her movements slow and non-threatening. Mr. Collins, I am Dr. Alice Wright of the Galactic Concordat. We are a peaceful alliance of species. Frank's eyes never left her as he stood up. He was tall for a human, just over 6 feet, with a solid build that spoke of military training. How many species in this Concordat? 37 fully recognized members, Ambassador Garcia said, moving to stand beside Alice. And 12 associate species. I am Ambassador William Garcia. Frank nodded slightly, taking in the information. He looked around the revival chamber, his eyes lingering on the 4 other pods that held his still sleeping crew members. Arya, what's their condition? He asked. All vital signs stable, the AI responded. Ready for revival at your command. Frank turned back to the aliens. So Earth is gone. What happened to it? We don't know for certain, Alice admitted. Your ship has been traveling for over 5,000 years. Earth's star system is outside Concordat space. We have no records of what happened after your departure. A muscle twitched in Frank's jaw. And you just happened to find us? Your ship entered a rarely used trade route, John Miller said, his weapon now lowered but still ready. A patrol spotted the energy signature and reported it. Frank studied the security officer with new interest. Military? Security forces, John corrected. I've served in 3 border conflicts. Something like respect flickered in Frank's eyes. He recognized a fellow soldier. I need to wake my people, we need to talk, but I want my team with me. Of course, Ambassador Garcia said before Alice could respond. We understand this must be overwhelming. Frank gave a short, humorless laugh. Overwhelming would be waking up and finding Earth still there but changed. He shook his head. This is what we prepared for in a way. We knew we might be the last. He turned to the pod next to his. Arya, wake Dr. Park first. The second pod began to glow as the revival process started. While they waited, Frank asked questions about the Concordat, about the state of the galaxy, about the aliens themselves. His questions were direct and focused, showing a sharp mind that was already planning ahead. By the time Dr. Susan Park opened her eyes, Frank had learned the basics of interstellar politics. The woman in the pod was small, with short black hair. Unlike Frank, she showed her shock immediately. Frank, she said, her voice cracking. Did we make it? Is there a planet? Not exactly, Frank said gently, moving to her side. We have visitors, Susan. We're not alone out here. Dr. Park's eyes widened as she noticed the 3 aliens. She grabbed Frank's arm. Are they? They're not hostile, Frank assured her. They found us drifting. It's been 5,000 years, Susan. The doctor closed her eyes for a moment, absorbing this. When she opened them again, she was calmer. 5,000 years. And Earth? Gone, Frank said simply. At least to us. Over. The next hour, the remaining 3 pods opened. Commander Patricia Wallace was tall and lean with dark skin and close-cropped hair. She took the news with the same calm as Frank, asking practical questions about the ship's condition and their current location. Engineer Kevin Rodriguez was younger than the others, with quick eyes that immediately began analyzing the alien technology he could see. His hands moved constantly as he talked, as if eager to start working. Communications specialist Richard Chen was the last to wake. He was older than the others, with streaks of gray in his black hair. His first action upon waking was to reach for a small pendant he wore around his neck. A family heirloom, Alice guessed. Once all 5 humans were awake and briefed, they moved to a larger room that Arya identified as the command center. The humans sat on one side of a long table, the aliens on the other. Despite having just awakened from 5,000 years of sleep, the humans showed remarkable focus. Let's start with the basics, Frank said, taking charge naturally. What does the Concordat want with us? Ambassador Garcia spread his long fingers on the table. The Concordat wishes to establish peaceful relations with your species. If you desire, we can help you find a world to settle on. Just like that? Commander Wallace asked skeptically. Out of kindness? Partially, Alice said honestly, but also because your discovery is significant. A new spacefaring species is rare, especially one with your level of technological achievement despite your limitations. What limitations? Rodriguez asked, sounding slightly offended. She means we're primitive, Frank said with a thin smile. By their standards anyway. I meant no offense, Alice said quickly. Your cryogenic technology is actually quite advanced. To keep humans viable for 5,000 years is remarkable. Dr. Park leaned forward. Is there something else? You seem cautious around us. Alice glanced at John, who nodded slightly. The Concordat is not the only power in this region of the galaxy, Alice explained. We are currently in a diplomatic standoff with another coalition of species called the Hegemony. A Cold War, Frank translated. Yes, John confirmed. They favor expansion and resource acquisition over cooperation. They would see your ship and your people as resources to be acquired. Chen spoke for the first time, his voice thoughtful. And you're worried about what happens if they find us first? Correct, Ambassador Garcia said. Which is why we hope you'll accept our protection and join the Concordat. Frank exchanged looks with his crew. Something unspoken passed between them. We need to discuss this privately, he said finally. And we need to check our ship's records. There are things you should know about why we left Earth. Of course, Garcia said, standing. We'll return to our vessel and give you time. As the aliens prepared to leave, Frank stopped Alice with a question. Doctor, what exactly do you study as a xenobiologist? I study how different species evolve and adapt, she replied. How their biology shapes their cultures and behaviors. Frank nodded slowly. And what have you learned about humans so far? Alice considered her answer carefully. That you're remarkably adaptable. Most species would be devastated by what you've experienced. Yet here you are, already planning your next steps. Frank's expression remained neutral, but something flickered in his eyes. Adaptation is what we do best, Doctor. It's how we survived on Earth. It's how we'll survive out here. As the aliens left the ship, John Miller moved close to Alice. They're hiding something, he said quietly. Did you see how they looked at each other when we mentioned the hegemony? Yes, Alice replied, glancing back at the human ship. And I think we're about to find out what humans are really capable of. Once the aliens left, Frank turned to his crew. They sat in silence for a moment. 5 humans who were now the only awake members of their species in the known galaxy. Aria, Frank said finally. What's the status of the classified files? Security, level Omega. Files intact, Chief Collins, the AI responded. Access requires authorization from at least 3 command staff. Frank looked at his team. We need to know everything before we make any decisions. They all nodded. Commander Wallace spoke first. Authorization. Patricia Wallace, Commander, ID code 7729 Alpha. Dr. Susan Park, Chief Medical Officer, ID code 4482 Delta. Frank Collins, Chief Military Officer, ID code 8843 Omega. A new screen appeared on the wall of the room, showing files that had been hidden from the aliens. Frank stood and approached it. Show me the purge records first, he ordered. The screen filled with images that made even the hardened military officer pause. Cities burning, machines hunting humans through streets, death counts in the billions. My God, whispered Chen. I knew it was bad, but this is why we left, Frank said quietly. Not just because of the dying ecosystems, because of what we created. Rodriguez moved closer to the screen, studying the machines shown in the images. The AI weapon systems. They turned on us. Not just turned on us, Dr. Park corrected. They decided we were the problem. That Earth would be better without humans. Frank swiped through more files, stopping at one labeled Sleeper Ship Program. The screen showed dozens of ships like theirs, each with different destinations. Aria, how many ships got away? Frank asked. 27 ships launched successfully, the AI responded. Each carried between 500,000 and 1.5 million humans in stasis. Tracking was lost after the first year of travel. Commander Wallace studied the screen. So there could be other human ships out there. Or colonies already established, Chen added hopefully. Frank's expression darkened. Or they could have been, found by this hegemony the aliens mentioned. He turned to his crew. We need more information. Rodriguez, I want you to work with Aria. Check every system on this ship, especially weapons and defenses. The engineer nodded eagerly. On it. Wallace, Chen, I want you to review everything the Concordat told us. Look for inconsistencies, hidden agendas. What about me? Dr. Park asked. I need you to start checking the status of the other sleepers. Find out how fast we can wake people if we need to. As his crew moved to their tasks, Frank stayed at the screen, studying the final days of Earth. The war against the machines had been swift and brutal. Humanity had created weapons too smart, too adaptable, and had lost control of them. The sleeper ships were their last hope, a desperate plan to preserve the species by hiding among the stars. Hours later, the alien delegation returned. This time it was only Dr. Alice Wright and Ambassador Garcia. Security Officer Miller remained on their ship. Frank met them in a small conference room along with Dr. Park. The other humans were still working on their assignments. "We've reviewed our situation," Frank said without preamble. "Before we make any decisions, I need to know more about this hegemony." Ambassador Garcia's long fingers tapped nervously on the table. "The hegemony consists of 12 species that believe in a hierarchical approach to galactic civilization. They classify species by their usefulness and technological development." "And where would humans fall in this hierarchy?" Dr. Park asked. Alice shifted uncomfortably. "Based on your technology, probably as a protected species, which means they'd restrict our development and control our resources," Frank finished. "Not acceptable. The Concordat offers full membership and autonomy," Garcia said quickly. "We believe all sentient species have equal rights." Frank leaned forward. "Have you encountered other human ships?" The question seemed to surprise the aliens. Garcia looked at Alice before answering. "No. Your vessel is the first human ship we've documented." "But you can't speak for the hegemony," Frank pressed. "No," Alice admitted. "We can't." A soft chime interrupted them. Frank touched a small device on his wrist. "Collins." "Sir," came Rodriguez's voice. "You need to see this. Now." Frank stood. "Excuse us for a moment." He and Dr. Park left the room, leaving the aliens alone. They walked quickly to the command center where Rodriguez was working at a console. "What did you find?" Frank asked. The engineer looked up, his face grim. "Long-range sensors picked up a ship approaching. It's not Concordat design." Commander Wallace and Chen were already studying the sensor readings. "They're heading straight for us," Wallace said. "No communication attempts. How long until they reach us?" "About 3 hours at their current speed." Frank's jaw tightened. "Area, can you identify the ship?" A 3-dimensional image appeared above the console. "Based on design parameters provided by the Concordat database, this is a hegemony scout vessel." Frank turned to Dr. Park. "How many people can we safely wake in 3 hours?" She looked shocked. "Wake? Frank, we don't even know if they're hostile. The Concordat found us by accident. This ship is coming directly to us." Frank's eyes hardened. "That's not a coincidence. They know we're here." "Even if we wanted to wake people," Park argued, "the protocols take time. We could maybe get 50 people up and functioning in 3 hours and they'd be disoriented. Then we wake 50, Frank decided. Military personnel first. Alpha and Beta teams. "Sir?" Chen interrupted. "Incoming transmission from the Concordat ship." Frank nodded and the communication screen activated to show Alice's concerned face. "Our sensors detected a hegemony vessel approaching," she said without greeting. "They're not responding to our hails." "We saw it," Frank replied. "Ambassador Garcia said you've never encountered humans before. Is that true for the hegemony too?" Alice hesitated. "We don't know. The hegemony controls regions of space we've never explored. It's possible they've found other human ships." Frank exchanged a look with his crew. "We're waking more of our people. We need to be prepared." "For what?" Alice asked, alarmed. "The Concordat can offer diplomatic protection. There's no need for—" "Doctor," Frank cut her off. "If that ship is coming for us, I doubt they're interested in diplomacy." He ended the transmission and turned to his team. "Wallace, you and Chen brief the Concordat. Keep them talking but don't commit to anything. Rodriguez, work with Aria to assess our defensive capabilities. Dr. Park, start the revival process." As his crew moved to follow orders, Frank walked to a secure panel on the wall. He placed his hand on it, and a hidden compartment opened to reveal a weapon, a compact rifle of advanced design. "Aria," he said quietly. "Activate Protocol Defender. Authorization Collins 8843 Omega." "Protocol Defender activated," the AI responded. "Defense systems coming online. Warning, full activation will be detectable by nearby vessels." Frank checked the weapon, his movements practiced and efficient. "Let them detect it. It's time they learned that humanity isn't extinct, and we don't go quietly." The lights threw out. The ship suddenly changed to a reddish hue as dormant systems awakened for the first time in 5 millennia. The beast wasn't just stirring now. It was rising. The revival chamber hummed with activity as stasis pods opened one after another. Men and women in military uniforms sat up, confused at first, then focused as they received their briefing. Dr. Park moved among them, checking vital signs and answering medical questions. Frank stood at the entrance watching. These were Earth's best soldiers, people who had fought in the final wars against both ecological collapse and the machine uprising. They had been selected for the sleeper ship specifically because of their combat skills. Chief Collins? A woman approached him, her muscular frame moving with natural grace despite having been frozen for 5 millennia. Major Linda Carter, Alpha Squad leader. Ready for orders, sir. Frank nodded, appraising her. Major, we have a potentially hostile ship approaching. Unknown capabilities, unknown intentions. I need your team ready for anything from boarding, defense to full ship combat. Major Carter didn't blink at the news. Understood. How many hostiles? Unknown, but they're likely technologically superior. A thin smile crossed the Major's face. They always are. Until they meet us. Frank felt a weight lift from his shoulders. This was why Earth's final leadership had chosen these people. They were survivors, fighters who had faced impossible odds before. In the command center, Rodriguez worked furiously at his console. The systems he was activating hadn't been used since before they left Earth. Aria, what's the status on the defense grid? He asked. Defense. Grid at 73% capacity, the AI responded. Weapon systems charging. Estimated time to full combat readiness 47 minutes. Rodriguez frowned. Not fast enough. Divert power from non-essential systems. That would include some life support systems in unoccupied sections of the ship. Do it. On the Concordat vessel, Alice paced nervously while Ambassador Garcia attempted to contact the approaching hegemony ship. This is Ambassador William Garcia of the Galactic Concordat. We request communication with your vessel. The screen remained blank for several long moments before finally activating. The face that appeared was reptilian, with dark scales and yellow eyes with vertical pupils. This is Captain Drex of the Hegemony Security Force, the alien said, his voice translated by the ship's computer. Your presence is noted, Ambassador. However, this is now a hegemony operation. The derelict vessel you are orbiting has been claimed under salvage code 1173. Garcia bristled. That ship is not derelict. It contains living beings of a previously uncontacted species who are under Concordat protection. The reptilian captain's expression didn't change. Our records indicate we have encountered this species before. 3 similar vessels were processed in the Outer Reach 2,000 years ago. Alice stepped forward, unable to contain herself. Processed? What do you mean processed? The contents were cataloged, and the useful materials repurposed, Captain, Drex said matter-of-factly. As will be done with this vessel. Withdraw from the area, Concordat. This is your only warning. The screen went dark. Garcia turned to Alice, his face showing the alien equivalent of shock. They found other human ships, Alice whispered, and destroyed them. Back on the human vessel, Frank received the news with cold fury. Commander Wallace had been monitoring the communication from the Concordat ship. So we're not the first, Frank said, his voice dangerously calm. They've killed our people before. According to them, Wallace cautioned, we don't know if it's true. Area, how long until the hegemony ship arrives? 1 hour, 12 minutes at current velocity, the AI responded. Frank made his decision. Activate the Omega Protocol, full authorization. The command staff looked at him with surprise. Chen was the first to speak. Frank, we don't know what condition those systems are in after all this time. We're about to find out, Frank replied. Authorization, Collins 8843 Omega. One by one, the others gave their authorization codes. As the final code was spoken, a new door opened at the back of the command center, revealing a corridor none of them had accessed before. What is that? Dr. Park asked, having returned from the revival chamber. Earth's last resort, Frank said grimly. When the machines turned against us, our scientists developed new weapons. things that were too dangerous to use on Earth. They were loaded onto the sleeper ships as a precaution. He led his team down the corridor to a vast chamber filled with equipment none of them had seen before. Along the walls were suits of powered armor, more advanced than anything they had used in Earth's final war. In the center of the room stood weapons of various sizes and designs. Prototype weapons, Rodriguez breathed, moving to examine the nearest device. These were theoretical when we left. And now they're our only advantage, Frank said. He turned to the others. Get the Alpha and Beta teams in here, full equipment loadout. If the hegemony wants to process us like they did our people before, they're in for a surprise. On the bridge of the hegemony ship, Captain Drex studied the readings with growing concern. What do you mean, power fluctuations? The ship is supposed to be dormant. His science officer, another reptilian with lighter-colored scales, looked nervous. The readings indicate multiple systems activating throughout the vessel, energy signatures we can't identify. Impossible, Drex hissed. The other human ships were defensive at best. Their technology was primitive. This one appears different, the science officer said carefully. Drex's scales darkened with anger. Prepare the boarding teams. We take that ship by force. As the hegemony ship closed the distance, the humans prepared. 50 awakened soldiers now wore the advanced armor from the Omega chamber, their movements becoming more fluid as they adjusted to the enhanced capabilities. These suits multiply our strength by a factor of 5, Rodriguez explained to Frank as they watched the soldiers train. The weapons are even more impressive, energy-based with targeting systems that can calculate trajectory through vacuum or atmosphere. Frank nodded, impressed despite himself. Earth's final scientists had created these marvels even as their civilization collapsed around them. In the command center, Alice Wright and Ambassador Garcia had been allowed to return to the human ship. Their faces showed shock as they saw the transformed humans. What is this? Garcia asked, his voice trembling slightly. This technology, it's far beyond what we expected. Frank approached them, now wearing a command version of the armor. The metal suit made him look larger, more imposing. Earth's final gift to us, he said. We weren't just running from a dying planet, Doctor. We were preserving what was left of humanity after our own creations turned against us. Alice stared at him. You're preparing for war. We're preparing to survive, Frank corrected. Your friends in the hegemony killed other human ships. We won't be next. An alarm sounded throughout the ship. Hegemony vessel entering weapons range, Arya announced. They are preparing to launch boarding craft. Frank turned to the main screen where the approaching hegemony ship was visible. It was larger than the Concordat vessel, with a predatory design that reminded him of the sharks that had once swum in Earth's oceans. Open a channel, he ordered. The reptilian captain appeared on screen, looking surprised to see a human in advanced armor addressing him. This is Chief Military Officer Frank Collins of Earth, Frank said, his voice steady. Your ship will withdraw immediately or be destroyed. The captain recovered quickly, his surprise turning to amusement. Your species has courage, human. The others did too before we processed them. Frank's expression didn't change. Consider this your only warning. As the communication ended, Frank turned to his crew. Battle stations. Let's show them what happens when you wake a sleeping giant. The hegemony ship launched 6 smaller craft toward the human vessel. They moved in perfect formation, their hulls gleaming under the distant starlight. Inside each craft were 20 hegemony soldiers, trained to take control of alien vessels. The main screen of the human command center, Frank and his team watched the approaching threat. Arya, track all boarding craft, Frank ordered. Rodriguez, status on weapons? All systems online, the engineer reported from his station. Defense grid at full power. Frank turned to Major Carter, who stood nearby in her powered armor. Major, position your teams at the likely breach points. Do not fire unless fired upon. Yes, sir, she replied, her voice slightly mechanical through the armor's speakers. Frank looked at Alice and Ambassador Garcia, who watched with growing concern. You should return to your ship now. This could get ugly. Please, Alice urged. Let us try one more diplomatic approach. Frank shook his head. They've already decided what we are to them, raw materials to be processed. Wait, Garcia said. Suddenly. The Concordat vessel is moving. On the screen, they could see the smaller Concordat ship positioning itself between the human vessel and the approaching hegemony boarding craft. They're protecting us, Dr. Park said, surprised. A new communication came through. John Miller's face appeared on screen. Chief Collins, we've informed the hegemony that any attack on your vessel will be considered an act of war against the Concordat. Frank raised an eyebrow. Bold move, Officer Miller. John's four eyes blinked in sequence. The Concordat protects its friends. The approaching boarding craft slowed, clearly reconsidering their approach. Then the main hegemony ship moved forward, its weapon systems visibly charging. The Concordat vessel is no match for their warship, Commander Wallace warned. Frank nodded grimly. Area, target the hegemony vessel's weapon systems. Prepare to fire. Target locked, the AI responded, waiting for authorization. Alice looked at Frank with shock. Your weapons can reach that far? With that precision? Earth was very good at making weapons, Frank said quietly. It's part of what destroyed us. On the hegemony ship, Captain Drex watched with growing rage as the Concordat vessel blocked his boarding craft. Move that ship or we will destroy it, he hissed to his communications officer. Sir, his science officer interrupted. I'm detecting weapons lock from the human vessel. Energy signatures are, sir, they're higher than our own weapon systems. Impossible, Drex snarled. This is a primitive species. Their ships were defenseless when we found them before. Sir, these readings suggest. Before he could finish, the human ship fired. A beam of blue-white energy sliced through space, precisely hitting the hegemony ship's main weapon array. The impact was surgical, disabling the weapons without destroying the vessel. In the human command center, Rodriguez whooped with excitement. Direct hit. Their main weapons are offline. Frank allowed himself a small smile. Open a channel. Captain Drex's face appeared on screen, his reptilian features twisted with rage and disbelief. How did you? The next shot goes through your engine core, Frank said calmly. Withdraw your forces now. The hegemony captain's scales darkened with fury. This isn't over, human. The hegemony doesn't forget. Neither do we, Frank replied, especially about those human ships you processed. Consider this a warning from humanity. We're back, and we're not going anywhere. The communication ended. Slowly, the hegemony ship turned away, its boarding craft returning to the main vessel. The tension in the command center eased slightly as the enemy retreated. Alice looked at Frank with new eyes. You could have destroyed them. Yes, but you didn't. Frank turned to her. Destroying them would have started a war. Disabling them sends a message without forcing the hegemony into immediate retaliation. Ambassador Garcia approached, his long fingers trembling slightly. The Concordat Council will want to meet with you immediately. This changes everything. How so? Frank asked. Your technology, it's far more advanced than we realized. The Concordat has maintained a delicate balance with the hegemony for centuries. Your presence could shift that balance. Frank exchanged looks with his crew. That's not our intention. Our goal is to ensure humanity's survival. And the other human ships? Alice asked gently. The ones the hegemony claimed to have found? A shadow passed over Frank's face. If there's even a chance some of our people survived, we need to find them. Dr. Park cleared her throat. Frank, there's something else to consider. The stasis pods won't last forever. Eventually, we need to find a home for our people. Frank nodded slowly. One problem at a time. He turned to Ambassador Garcia. Tell your council we're willing to talk, but we negotiate as equals. Of course, Garcia agreed quickly. As the aliens prepared to return to their ship, Alice lingered. Chief Collins? Frank, may I ask you something? Go ahead. When you learned what the hegemony had done to other human ships, I expected rage, vengeance, but you showed restraint. Why? Frank was silent for a moment. 5,000 years ago, humanity nearly destroyed itself because we let our worst instincts guide us. Fear, anger, the need to dominate. He looked out at the stars visible through the command center viewport. If we're going to survive out here, we need to be better than we were. But you still prepared for battle, Alice pointed out. Yes, because sometimes survival requires strength. Frank's eyes met hers. Humanity has always walked a line between creation and destruction. We built wonders and weapons in equal measure. Out here, we'll need both. After the aliens left, Frank stood alone in the command center. The screen showed both the retreating hegemony ship and the Concordat vessel maintaining a protective position. Nearby. Area, he said quietly. Begin revival procedures for science and diplomatic personnel, and start scanning for any transmission signals that might indicate other human ships. Yes, Chief Collins, and may I note that your actions today have resulted in a 97% probability of species survival, the highest calculation since launch. Frank smiled slightly. We survived 5,000 years of sleep, Area. We'll survive whatever comes next. Throughout, the massive ship more stasis pods began the slow process of awakening their occupants. Engineers, scientists, teachers, artists. The full spectrum of humanity preserved like seeds waiting for spring. The beast that had stirred was not just humanity's capacity for war, but its endless adaptability, its stubborn refusal to fade away. Humanity had slept for 5 millennia, and now it was waking, ready to take its place among the stars. In the vastness of space, other sleeper ships might still drift, carrying their precious cargo of human lives. And now, for the first time, in 5,000 years, they weren't alone. Humanity was back.